Welcome everyone to season 2, episode 2 of Avico Economic Forum, where we are going to discuss about quadrilateral security dialogue, otherwise known as Quad, where India is an integral part of it. So here we'll be speaking about how it's going to affect the Indian strategy, India's military strategy, and all the other countries involved here. In this session, we have a very new speaker with us. We have Ms. Mrinal here, who is a student of St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, and she's an avid economic and finance reader. Whereas we also have Bharat Kulkarni here, who has been a part of our forum before. He's pursuing his chartered accountancy. And in this session, as we know, there are basically one quad which has already been developed, which is between India, USA, Japan, and Australia, where the prominence has been in the last year. During the pandemic itself, we have had lots of dialogues between these countries, and people have seen a very strong military power and an anti-China slogan being called by them. However, in recent developments, we are also seeing a new security dialogue taking place between India, USA, UAE, and Israel. So this is not yet formed as a quad, but that is what has been given the term to them as of now. So let us try to understand a little more about this. Varun, the first question is for you. In the last 2 years, India has been a part of many military programs, like for example the Rafale deal, the disinvestment of power corporations, the equipment from Russia, etc. So apart from the importance of military power for political supremacy, why do you think India is strengthening its defense so much in recent years?
Yeah, Akash. So thanks for your question. And to address that, I would like to bring the emphasis on the current developments, which are definitely the pressures coming towards the India from our neighboring, sweet neighboring country, the China. Indians, we have been historically been focusing upon the issue of Kashmir and the all the Afghanistan issue and the terrorism which we have been importing from Iran. But
Mhm.
recent in the recent years, when the pandemic started, as we know, the policy of the Chinese Communist Party to put pressure on the other countries when they have their own internal problems, we come to know that the same policy has been applied on India also, and they have started claiming our Galwan Valley, then many part of eastern Ladakh, then Arunachal Pradesh, which practically form a part of their five finger strategy. We never expected that actually. And to to oppose the country like People's Republic of China, we are currently not that equipped in sense of economy, in the sense of military power, in the sense of the global political influence, I would say. So our cooperation with the countries such as UAE, Japan, Australia, who have somewhat same strategies or same problems from China or threats from China like us, give us edge to put pressure on the Chinese Communist Party. And to add to that point, I would also say that the current developments between India and Taiwan have also been, a good part of the strategy of Quad. Obviously, India cannot currently form formal relationships with the Republic of China, that is Taiwan.
Mhm.
And hence, what happens is that it really helps India in terms of putting pressure on CCP. So that's, I would say, one of the reasons that India needs to form itself as a part of these programs. Other than
Right.
that, the thing is that there is a widespread terrorism being spreading in the Middle East in few years, say in Jordan, Syria, Iraq, or even say few some kind of terrorism activities from the government side, from Iranian side, we have been facing. That pulls us to the fact that UAE also wants to form part of this group in recent times. If you see the if you see the Gulf of Oman, that activity which is currently going on near that area has
Mhm.
put pressure on most of the Gulf countries also, including Saudi Arabia and UAE. So that certainly brings us to the point that to counter these kind of activities, we have to form an alliance. and
Definitely.
for this purpose, China has been pledging some $400 billion to Iran to
Mhm.
counter the American side of the story, that is Saudi Arabia and UAE. So if I say about geopolitics, is a very simple game, like we used to play in childhood. If some people uh, get divided by the thoughts, then they automatically form a team.
That is true.
So that's what happening currently, and I hope that addresses your question.
Definitely. As I say, even as I mentioned, an enemy is always a friend to us. You have given really good pointers about why India is requiring a military power right now. We have been facing a lot of tensions with China, not just us, many countries. Even though China's policy is not of having military supremacy, but of having economic supremacy. But that is how they're going to present their strategy. They're making allied countries debt-rid, and that's how they're getting prominence. And even USA has been in the trap right now. So we'll move a little forward with the Quad discussion. Mrinal, this question is for you. The first Quad meeting that took place in 2010 amounted to nothing. But in the last 1 year is when the real Quad emerged and when the dialogues took place even better. So why do you think the Quad quickly gained ground during the pandemic between the first four countries?
So I'll first like to dissect this question into two parts. The first part of question I'd like to answer, like why didn't Quad gain ground in 2010 right after its formation? So to answer this part, let us look at how the Quad evolved. So basically, in 2004, when tsunami occurred in the Indian Ocean, India needed support. So Japan rushed quickly to India's support, which was followed by USA and Australia, and together all of them reached a consensus that they would essentially form a grouping. This stronger push for a grouping was given by Japan. And Quad formally was formed in 2007 and the first meeting was held in 2010. However, at that point of time, we see China was not as aggressive as it is today, right? It was like an emerging global power, but it was not as prominent or it didn't, supersede USA in that front. USA was the hegemonic power present at that point of time. And so that is why countries like Australia or Japan, Australia were a little shy or hesitant to show their allegiance towards Quad. Like Australia kept on constantly mentioning that Quad is not a formal alliance, it's just an informal measure which we are doing here. So that was the thing. So what happened, say, post 2015 or since the time Trump became the president of US, anti-China sentiment arose. There has been a trade war. There has been a trade war which went on between US and China emerged as a global threat. To sort of offset China's dominance, it was felt by all of these four nations. That's Japan, that's USA, that's India. That's to sort of offset China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific, right? So I'll first of all try to point out several, say, tipping points which led to the formation of Quad. Or the strengthening of Quad. For India, it was the Galwan Valley clash, where India wasn't even able to sort of contain or get the status quo restored in the Galwan Valley. That was a tipping point for India to realize that look, China is not to be taken lightly. It has to be taken seriously. For US, it was when it realized that how deeply intricate and how deeply tied the economic systems are to China. How every country has its economic ties so deeply intricate or so deeply embedded with China that it's simply impossible to decouple those. So that's when US realized that China is a growing hegemony and it has to be curbed. For Australia, it was when Australia wanted to sort of track the origins of COVID, and it was like the request was completely dismissed by China. The Chinese ambassador to Japan was sort of humiliated. So these were four tipping points which actually, acted as a catalyst for something like Quad to be formed. And the main motive of Quad is to maintain global sovereignty in the Indo-Pacific region and also, although it's not mentioned anywhere, it just states that it's to maintain the stability in the Pacific the region. They want to curb or they want to control the growing Chinese aggression.
That is true. Adding to the points you mentioned, China even gave the threat of nuclear attack on Australia just because of the questioning done by Australia and the anti-China slogans that they were spreading all over the world. That was one. And there was also border tension between China and Japan. Obviously, nothing can be done about that. There was no war or like a Cold War happening between them, but there's still tension between borders, very less than what is being happening between India and China. But in any case, we see the entire opportunity or the entire objective of having this discussion is arisen after China's influence on these countries. So we can see where the path is headed for them, and definitely they're not going to mention anywhere that against China. But yes, their actions definitely speak louder than what their words are speaking. So, Varat, the next question is for you here. The objective for the meeting of our PM now, we are moving on to the next possible Quad. The meeting which was held in Israel was maybe just, for economic and military dialogue and for cooperation. We never knew who were the participating countries here. We never knew what was happening. And then suddenly reports came that, there's a possibility to have a new Quad. I mean, that is what these four countries are trying to engage with. So could you walk us through a quick explanation of why the second dialogue was important and why a new Quad is a positive aspect here?
Yeah. So basically, during the presidency of Barack Obama, we could evidently see that the Quad was very silent. It was supposed to be very vocal in terms of some international issues, but it didn't. But as we see that as and when the Donald Trump came into the power, he saw, as Mrinal mentioned, how the economies are intrigued with the other countries, the Belt and Road Initiative that China introduced during this period. So Trump actually tried to convince the US, a common citizen of US, that this is something which is not good for the America. And then the formal dialogue between the Quad nations began, I believe. And during this period, I believe if hypothetically speaking, if the Donald Trump had got the second term in the White House, we could actually see the Quad dialogue could be, developing towards some military alliance, we could say, or some at least a formal relations. We could see Quad's headquarters being established, the treaty being signed by all the four nations. Somehow Democrats came into the power, and Joe Biden is of the most of the opinion that the Quad should be focusing upon the climate change, then vaccine distribution throughout the world, then addressing the issue of sale of weapons from Russian side, Iranian deal, Iran nuclear deal. Importance of Quad as a military power is currently being ignored, I feel. What is happening is that the threat from Chinese side is not going anywhere. It is still with us, and it is going to be with us as long as Chinese Communist Party is going to have their internal problems into the country. So that was the pitching point where India had to think about some different partners, something different than the existing Quad, to just counter the spreading influence of China. If you see in Afghanistan, the kind of dialogues they have had with the Taliban government, and the kind of influence they have been having in CPEC in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Then if you see the Iran and China deal to boost the infrastructure within the Islamic Republic of Iran, then in the oil fields of Middle East, this is all not going anywhere in the short term. It is going to be there, and the influence is going to rise. So this is something which pitched India, and we are currently trying to get new members to just counter it.
That makes sense. Just a build-up question there for you, Gaurav. Then now you had mentioned about the Trump administration coming in, actually voicing about anti-China slogans and Chinese good dumping, etc. So do you think that was important to happen to realize how China was gaining the power? It was a wake-up call for all the other countries too, or do you think maybe if we had avoided that, if a democratic functioning was happening and there was still mutual cooperation between US and China, such tensions wouldn't have arisen, especially during the pandemic, irrespective of the COVID pandemic?
A very simple logic about your question is that no one speaks out until they start having problem from their neighbor. Unless and until your neighboring country starts occupying your land or start harassing your people, why would your country's government be vocal about your neighbor? And that's what happened during the last 4 to 5 years, I believe, that Chinese influence in the Central Asia, be it Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, has been rising. And as you said, that was an important call for US to decide on which side to focus. As we see from the last 70 to 80 years, the focus of US has majorly been the USSR, which is a fallen kingdom now. To pass that, military power from NATO to Quad has been a very difficult choice for the US, because if you see, Russia is a threat for US. I don't, it's threat for their interest. I'm not saying it's a literal threat, but if you see the current geopolitical scenario, it has changed a lot from the period of fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. So that's what I believe the Trump administration might have thought in their period in the White House.
So I'd like to add on to what Ron said. So first of all, let us understand this new Quad grouping while keeping in mind the changing shifts in Indian foreign policy as well as the changing global international order. To talk about the changing shifts in Indian foreign policy, we see that non-alignment movement was in its full throttle in the 1950s and the 1960s. The non-alignment movement, we mean India didn't involve itself with any country or stayed aloof most of the time. However, this diplomatic stance started losing its ground in the 1990s, which was soon replaced by strategic autonomy. Now, speaking about the global stance, we now are witnessing a trend which we can call minilateralism. Initially, in the Cold War period, it was bilateralism, which was soon replaced after the fall of Russia, that's the fall of USSR. It became multilateralism, where every country was viewed as a growing economic superpower, which is now again turning into minilateralism. One special feature of multilateralism is say the influential position which UN enjoyed, which is soon waning because of UN's inability to control powerful nations like China. So because of that, what we see is small strategic alliances emerging. Something like Quad or the military grouping between US, India, UAE and Israel, or the AUKUS grouping which came into existence recently. All of these groupings are sort of, evidences of how the world order is shifting. Talking specifically about the grouping of the four nations, which happened recently, or the new possible Quad. Let's look at UAE and Israel. So Israel is a country which was ridden with the Palestinian conflict. And because of the Palestinian conflict, we see a lot of Arab nations, they do not have good ties with Israel, right? So it was in 2020 when Trump administration orchestrated something called the Abraham Accords and normalized ties between, like US was the mediator and UAE was the first Arab nation to normalize ties with Israel. Right? And because of this, there was an inkling that something like a Quad or a military grouping would come into existence between US, which was, say, the arbitrator between Israel and UAE. India was viewed as by experts as an odd inclusion in the three parties. However, to look at India's inclusion or India taking active part in this new Quad, we can possibly trace the reasons to say two things. First is Middle East. India wants to gain ground in the Middle East. Middle East has been a difficult puzzle always for India to solve. It's marked or it's ridden with a lot of civil wars, conflicts, and post-Arab Spring. The scenario has been, like we can say, Middle East is in shambles. So India, if it takes a powerful stance there, we can sort of leverage up our global position. That's one thing. So India wants to India can become a sort of big brother in the Middle East by sort of becoming an arbitrator in the conflicts there. And second is Middle East has a lot of oil reserves and India thinks that it can gain some of those oil reserves and gain some advantage over there. So I think these are the two possible reasons why India is a part of this new Quad.
Definitely. These are good inputs that you have given here. And actually, you've given a good introduction to even us, including UAE and Israel in the conversation. We're totally focusing on USA and China. But also a couple of points that even I can add here is that the inclusion of Israel is a very interesting concept right now, because still many countries do not consider Israel as a proper country. They don't have embassies in so many places because of the Palestinian conflict. And right now, their technological and military power is very strong of Israel. It's at least technology is better than India. From the time they have been recognized in UN, they have been ranked 51 in the HDI index. So it's a very strong country, even though the recognition isn't much. UAE and Israel have had their own problems in the past, but right now they're going for mutual cooperation. And India has always been a very strong mediator between these two countries. We have good relations between both of them, and hence India's supremacy can be seen more in this quad than the previous one. So it definitely makes sense to bring them into conversation here. So Mrinal, the next question is for you. Now, initially we were talking about the security dialogues being for anti-China operations, right? And if I can mention, the talk of the island has also been that of the Yemenish island of Socotra, which forms a very interesting base for these countries as well as USA to monitor the trade happening on the Indian Ocean and the transatlantic oceans from China to European countries and to African countries. So what do you think is the important strategic invasion that UAE and Israel have already undertaken since 2018? And how do you think this will progress in the coming years?
That's an interesting question. So, looking at Socotra, we need to understand what Socotra Island is basically. So, Socotra Island is one island which belongs to Yemen. It's located in the Indian Ocean, very close proximity to India. It's located in the Arabic Sea, very specifically. So we can understand how close it is to India. Now, talking of Socotra, it has a lot of, say, exotic plant and animal species, and it was a tourist destination before civil war took over in Yemen. So, to understand the history of Socotra, it was a Yemenis territory, which later, because of the civil war, it came under the control of Saudi Arabia, which was again taken over by a group called STC, which is a separatist group participating in the Yemeni civil war, and it was backed by the UAE. So currently it's controlled by UAE. So what new development we see in Socotra is UAE has joined hands with Israel to sort of, initiate a joint partnership program to boost Socotra's tourism and other strategic areas and make Socotra an important base. So here we witness two things. First is a closer partnership between UAE and Israel post Abraham Accords. And second thing is Middle East countries want to keep an eye on China. So usually when we speak of China, it's say US or India or Russia who want to monitor Chinese incursions and invasions. But when we talk of Middle East, which is so conflicted, and if they want to sort of monitor Chinese activities, we can sort of see how the development can pan out from there.
Makes sense. We understand the story. We understand, how important the role that the island plays and what more could happen there. Definitely. Now, moving the discussion to a little bit complicated aspect here. Now, of course, the talk of the town is that of India and USA being the common countries between both the quadrilaterals, right? Having different objectives too. So now we understand India's role, India's requirement of being in the Quad. We understand USA's role and its requirement in the Quad. So Bharat, the next question is for you. Together, taking India and USA as one unit, what is that very important thing that they put forth on a table that clearly motivates the other country, which includes Japan and Australia in the first quad, as well as USA and Israel in the second quad, to establish stronger relations for military. And apart from the military power, what else do you think they get on the table?
In the current geopolitical scenario, I believe two countries which have most threats from the Chinese Communist Party is the India and the US. For the India, it's obviously because of the territorial integrity that we want to maintain and the Indo-Pacific free maritime movement that we want to promote. And for the US, the problem is that they want to maintain the democracy in the Republic of China, that is Taiwan, and challenge to their hegemony in terms of we see the de-dollarization happening. We see many of the countries are facing the problem of the threat trap, which Chinese government has been facing through BRI. Referring to the question, I believe that these two countries are the center of any international forum which will be formed in the future also against China. Other countries like Japan and Australia, to be the center of the question, are forming the part of Quad. Is that the Japan is having the proximity to China in a lot of senses. If you see the top business partners in terms of the international trade of India, Japan, US, the first country which comes is the China. The supply chain which these countries are having in their manufacturing hubs right now is mainly driven by the China and their other allies. So what happens is that if the Chinese Communist Party by any chance tries to break this or tries to disturb this supply chain, it becomes very difficult for the whole economy to run, in the long run. And if you see, particularly for the Japan, the issue has majorly been the Yellow Sea and Senkaku Islands, which is the disputed territory between both the countries. And for the Australia, it is not a major issue, but the reporters which were detained in China for the anti-China, presentations which were given itself in China. And other than that, I would say the kind of takeover of Victoria state government was being done by China, as they accepted the proposal of BRI directly in the Australia without taking the permission of central government. So that were the two important keys that Australia pitched into the Quad, and Japan, as I said, due to Yellow Sea and Senkaku Islands issue. Historically, if you see the World War II also, China was on the American side and Japan was on the opposite side. So historically, these two countries have not shared very good relations with each other. And to address also the Japan and the neighboring countries like South Korea, be the good neighbors of each other historically. So I believe that has somewhat brought Japan and Australia also to to be with the countries like India and the US to form these quadrilaterals.
Definitely makes sense. We understand how it's important for these countries to be part of the Quad, as well how India and USA can also help them. And we also took a lot of insights from Mrinal's answer to the earlier question, how UAE and Israel are an important aspect, and how their mindset is what drives the objective of Quad too. The motivation still remains. So that's a very good take. Thank you so much for that. Also, just to mention the relations between USA and China, the deteriorating relations is not just from 2016. The blame has been put in 1972 itself due to a meeting there, but we'll be taking that up in the next session, which is that of USA and China and USA's hegemony, how it's being challenged. So stay tuned for that. But right now, the last question is for you, Mrinal, for this session. What do you think is the possible reaction of China to these developments? We have been talking about the Quad and their dialogue and their objectives, but China is taking these notes. They're saying what is going to happen. Their strategy of debt traps rather than military, I don't think will persist for longer right now. They will definitely move forward with their military power over Asian and African countries at least. We see the RCEP deal. India was not a part of it because of Chinese influence and a non-cooperation between them. So is there a way that China will retaliate to these developments? So what do you think their strategy can be here?
So first of all, let's first understand. So the answer to this question will be purely speculative, because it's what we're looking at is what China can do. So to draw some parallels or to draw some examples, what I can say is China since the beginning has been following an export-led sort of economic model, which had a lot of which followed a lot of dumpings in other nations in order to boost their economic power. So post-pandemic, what we've seen is all countries have tried to distance themselves from China, which have resulted in the semiconductor crisis itself. So what we can grasp out of this position is basically the countries do not want to engage themselves with China at any cost. The cars in other nations are taking like 10 months to manufacture, but still countries are not, paying heed to China just because of a strong sentiment they bear against China. So this is the global position right now. So Chinese possible reaction to this can be threefold. First is China going in for more and more military standpoints. First is it can establish more and more military standpoints or in the South Chinese Sea. So the South Chinese Sea, it has been dominated, some parts of it have been dominated by China, and it can increase its influence further over there to sort of, flag to other countries that look, I'm dominant here, even if you block me economically, I will show my strength in the military front. So that is one possible reaction which China can have to sort of, these embargoes, informal embargoes imposed against China. The second one is data. So data is a very tricky affair nowadays. So China can possibly hack into the systems of these Quad nations and possibly, rupture them, say through data threats or data security measures. So this is another sort of retaliation which China can do. And third is, we have seen this Chinese trend, China pulling out of US market. So if you remember, and which is a subsidiary of Alibaba Group, they were to release an IPO in the US market. But Chinese government withdrew it at the very last moment, and that caused a sort of domino effect in the US as well as Chinese economy. So this can be another way in which China can plan to hurt other economies around the world if they are sort of banned from trading with other nations. If other nations sort of boycott China, these are the three possible ways in which I can see China retaliating.
Definitely, that makes sense. One thing that can never be underestimated is the technological power that China has, and the world is dependent on China for that. That's a very good point that you have brought forward, Mrinal. And with the same points, we'll be concluding the discussion. We have seen the entire aspect of the Quad, its functioning, and what is the future for it. So very well informed discussion here. So thank you so much, guys, and all our viewers. If you like this session, please do like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And please stay tuned for more sessions. Thank you.